chance to hear it, so let her tell it. People on the streets say Sabrina speaks. Tune into the show, she will let you know. Tell all your friends and family. Real talk is no joke. You get the news straight up from grassroots and concerns. You can hear some people gone. So tell all your friends to tune in to
Good evening, Cayman. I'm Sabrina Turner, and welcome to Sabrina Speaks, your daily dose of clarity, truth, and community insights. Every weekday from 5 to 6:30 p.m., we're tackling the issues that affect you, from national headlines to grassroots concerns. Whether you're in traffic or winding down your day, this is your chance to hear it straight and speak your truth. So buckle up, Cayman. We're not holding back.
This is the show. We gotta let you know. Now we got to go.
And now here's Sabrina.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome, one and all, to our families near and far. Hello, how are you on this fabulous Thursday? One day closer to entering our long weekend. It's good to be back with you this afternoon. Hi, I'm Sabrina. Welcome to another episode of Sabrina Speaks, Voices of the Islands, Conversations for the World, and the podcast where voices rise, stories unfold, and inspiration takes center stage. Yes, it's good to be back here with you on this Thursday, eve before Friday, and we ease on into the weekend. I've been trying and get into this topic for the past 3 days, and of course, migration. I'm seeing it popping up more, even in the algorithms, and you search trending news around the Caribbean and even here. And it's making its way definitely more and more. But one thing is for certain, that everything aligns, is that it is inevitable. What is? Migration. But how we respond defines our future, to be very honest with you. And I'm hoping in this episode, and you're welcome to join in and weigh in on this. On this episode of Sabrina Speaks, I want to share with you a little bit of history, because I think that's making more impact when you see where we're coming from. A little history on Cuban migration through Cayman, and talk a little bit about the rising cost of management and what we're seeing, regional shifts that could be bringing diverse nationalities to our shore. Now, we are saying Cuba because of what's happening with Venezuela. But what if there are other nationalities, hypothetically speaking, that find themselves on our shores? From international refugee law to Cayman Islands Constitution, from humanitarian duty to national security, I'm hoping that by any means, we would be able to kind of look into this, because we're seeing where it's happening in the UK as well. And this is something that's happening around the world. So my aim, hopefully, in this episode, with your help, is to blend civic truth with hard facts, challenging us to reflect on what it means to protect Caymanian identity. We're on our way with that, where immigration reform is concerned, while honoring, in this particular case for migration, honoring global obligations. Now, the content you're about to hear, including any discussions or opinions from myself, guests, and our participants, is intended solely for general informational and entertainment purposes. It's not a substitute for professional legal, medical, or financial advice. I encourage you to consult with a qualified professional for your specific concerns. Bridge Media Limited and all its affiliates disclaims all liability for any decisions or actions taken in reliance on the information presented. 345-936-8255. That's 345-936-8255 is the number to call to be part of the discussion. And don't forget to like, follow, share, and subscribe. Tell a friend as well. Yes, it's Thursday. Thank you for all of you. I see you piling in. It's good to always have you all here. But let's get this bit of housekeeping out of the way. We're seeing where a high pressure system dominates the weather pattern over the Northwest Caribbean, resulting in moderate winds and seas today, now gradually decreasing tonight. Meanwhile, instability across the area could trigger a few brief showers over the sister islands tonight, and satellite images show few clouds south of the Cayman area. Tonight's forecast calls for partly cloudy skies with a 30% chance of late night showers. Temperatures will fall to the mid 70s, and winds will be northeast 5 to 10 knots. Seas will be slight to moderate with wave heights of 2 to 4 feet. Tomorrow's forecast called for partly cloudy skies with a 20% chance of showers. Temperatures will rise near the low to mid 80s. Winds will be northeast 5 to 10 knots, and seas will be slight to moderate with wave heights of 2 to 4 feet. There will be a low tide this evening at 6:20. A low tide tomorrow morning at 5:52, and a high tide at 12:12 tomorrow afternoon. Sun will set this evening at 6:11, and sun will rise tomorrow at 7:02. There will also be a sunset tomorrow at 6:12. The outlook calls for light to moderate winds and seas through Saturday. So there you have it as we look forward to this long weekend. And I know you're probably busting at the seams to see what the weekend forecast would be looked at. We will bring that for you here today. You know, Sabrina Speaks is brought to you time on the CMR TV platform every Monday to Friday from 5 until 7. Of course, on Monday being a public holiday, we will not be live, but we will be right back with you here tomorrow for another Open Mic Friday. And that Friday now is being dedicated to all of you as, of course, where topics are concerned, any topic. But you see how we are able to flex here on the show. And you're always welcome to air and be a part of this platform. And you are appreciated. Trust me, you all are. Birthday shout outs to anyone who's celebrating a birthday, an anniversary, and just celebrating life overall. I'm hoping that you had a good birthday today, a good anniversary, or whatever it is you're celebrating, and many, many more to come. I told you how the birthday shout outs go. If you're not on my Facebook, I'm not going to see you. If you don't share it with me, I'm not going to know. So please, I'm not being picking if there's somebody that's on Facebook and you're not called out. It could be because you're not in my Facebook. So yeah, if you're there, I'm going to post you up. And just send you some Sabrina Speaks love. That's how we do it here. Yeah. Let's see. Shaka Zulu, I see you were waiting. Good evening to you. No wonder you're laughing, you brute you. How are you? I hope that you're having a good Thursday. Evelyn Palmer, good evening to you as well. Yep. Shaq's in the house. Marshall, it's good to have you as well. Good evening to you. Booty cheeks. Oh, really? Hey, Damian Henry, how are you? Hey, Jimbo, how you doing? Donnie's in the house. Yes. Hi, Ariana and Annie Ann. Good to have you all here with us. It's good to have everybody with us. And even those who are still coming in, let's do the roundup before we get into the conversation. And like I said, you're all welcome to join in, participate in this discussion. I love when I get your feedback on whatever platform you are. Am I a bit off again? I'd like to get your feedback on the discussions. And I know a lot of you have been saying, where's Danny? Danny, they're missing you. Just in case you're hearing, they're missing you here on Sabrina Speaks. So let's see, maybe he'll surprise us today. Who's to tell? Let's get into approximately 2 minutes roundup at what's going on around the world, and definitely right here in the Caribbean region, the United States and the UK. We've been getting some top headlines, but I won't go in great detail with them. And if anything sparks off at you, by all means, feel free to comment and we can go there a little bit more. But just in case, here are the top headlines from the Cayman Islands, Caribbean, United States, and the United Kingdom that's making its trend across our social media platforms for today. Right here at home, we see again, and it's about our topic today, that the Cayman Islands government is preparing for a possible surge in Cuban migrants, with the National Security Council activating contingency plans amid regional instability. We're going to talk a little bit on that today. Also making headlines here in the Cayman Islands today, Premier Andre Ebanks led a caucus retreat to set to 2026 priorities, focusing on cost of living challenges and immigration reforms. Meanwhile, Leadership Cayman launched its 2026 cohort, bringing together 25 professionals for civic leadership training. Let's take a look at what's leading in the Caribbean region. We're seeing where Belize has activated a national task force to prepare for the annual sargassum season, aiming to protect tourism and coastal communities. Good for them in Belize. That's being proactive. Also in the region, we also see where an Inter-American Development Bank warns that external pressures are eroding the Caribbean middle class despite economic growth. And in the Bahamas, investigators suspect arson in a Grand Bahama house fire, while officials clarified employment status at Lucian Regional Renewal Holdings. So that's what's happening in the Caribbean region. Let's take it over to the United States. President Donald Trump has warned that another government shutdown is probably coming, with Congress facing a January 30th funding deadline. Yes, so there we have. And at Davos, Trump stepped back from earlier threats over Greenland, announcing instead of a framework deal on mineral rights and missile defense. Let's take it across the pond to the United Kingdom. We're seeing where Prince Harry testified in court, claiming a tabloid publisher Meghan's life misery. And Prime Minister Kirk Starmer faces pressure from Labour MPs over leasehold reform promises. Also, the House of Lords has backed a ban on social media for use for under 16s. A major move in youth protection. Yes, so the House of Lords is backing a ban on social media use for under 16s, which is a move in youth protection. And in foreign policy, Starmer met Denmark's prime minister to discuss Arctic security and NATO cooperation following Trump's Greenland deal claims. So there you have it. That's your global headlines roundup. And it Cayman preparing for migration pressures. We're also seeing the Caribbean tackling environmental and economic challenges, and the US facing political uncertainty, and definitely in the UK debating youth protection and Arctic security. 345-936-8255 is the number to call to be a part of the discussion that we're talking about migration here. We've been trying to get at this topic for the past three days, and I'm hoping to get your feedback. That is always, always welcome. Good evening, Connie Bonnie. How are you? Did you see the joke last night where Jimbo said, "Good night, Sabrina," and he sent a separate message, Connie, telling you good night as well? Of course, I did the LOL part because, yeah, I know how touchy you are, Connie Bonnie. This love triangle is something. Hey, Michelle, how are you doing? Good evening to you as well. And it's always good to have you here. And I love to see your comments. It's really, really good to be back with you on this Thursday. Now, let's get into it, please. Again, anyone who wants to weigh in on this, please feel free to call. Let's just get into speaking what is obviously inevitable. Hey, Miss Barbara, how you doing, my sweet? Always good to have you in the house and be a part of the discussion as well. Hope you're doing well. Good to see you all. Now, let's talk a little bit about migration. Yes, please. That's where we're going to focus on. We here in the Cayman Islands we know of Cubans, right? We have had our fair share of them. Some say it's illegal migration. Some say it's legal migration. We have an obligation. Let's get into it. It's really not just about numbers, okay? When you look at it wholeheartedly, it's about people. It's about identity. And in this context, the future of Cayman. So I know that as we go into it, it'll become more and more apparent that it is inevitable. There is some complexity to this discussion, and it's also equally deeply connected to the truth, civic-wise, where migration, immigration laws, asylum on a whole, even national security, it plays into that. Okay? But as we all listen and prepare to participate, which this space without you is very lonely, so I invite you to participate. I want you to reflect a little bit on what does Cayman's responsibility in your view look like in this global moment? And how do we balance compassion, which we constantly have shown, with protection, and unity with preparedness for the inevitable? Let's take it back a little bit. For decades, Cuban migrants have passed through the Cayman Islands. But here's the truth. Most do not stay. They move on. And they move on, leaving little lasting, I would say, impact on our job market or even our culture, but lasting impact on the cost. Yet, we have seen over the years, managing these flows has definitely not been free. What my data, when I was looking back at information, between 2019 and 2021, I have found that the Cayman Islands spent nearly $3.85 million on Cuban migrants. In 2019 alone, the figure was $1.55 million. And in 2020, $1.35 million. In 2021, just under 950,000. And by mid-2022, another 450,000 had already been spent. So even what we're seeing in this pattern, that migrants don't stay here. They're not taking away jobs from anyone. They're not actually changing our culture, that sort of stuff, changing how we live, that sort of stuff. The financial burden on the Cayman Islands is real. And that is hitting everyone's pocket because it's the Cayman Islands government that's funding that. It's your money. So if Cayman is already spent millions, and I want you to think on this, managing these migrants who mostly leave anyway, in your opinion, how should we really prepare financially in future arrivals? Yeah. And that decision still remains uncertain. Because even though we're accustomed to a high influx of Cuban migrants reaching our shores, what if that nationality even change? We are seeing emerging regional shifts, and history is not destiny. I know that. But what we're seeing today is that regional small island states, just like ourselves, even though we haven't agreed to accept like the CARICOM jurisdictions, but what we're seeing is other jurisdictions in our region, they're agreeing to take deportees from the United States. Now, my friends, that's where the risks increase. And that changes the game. Cubans alone may not be the only migrants that we see in the future. And it may change because some may now wish to stay. Now, that in itself raises some questions. And the questions raise, how then do we prepare institutions and schools, healthcare, housing for more diverse possibility of a migrant population? And if you haven't thought of it before, if you're seeing what's happening in the region, I implore you to think of that now. Because even though, as I said, we're accustomed to the Cuban migrants coming in, using here almost as a touch point, what if that changes? What happens when migration is not transient, but then possibly becomes permanent? Yeah. What's your take on that? We see where we're struggling as well. We're hearing the cry for immigration reform that pretty much protects who we are as generational Caymanians. We're seeing the traffic increase. We're seeing our schools. We're seeing even what we're seeing in accessible to housing and all that sort of stuff is because of the growing demand of population. Now, this is another layer that could be a reality. How are we preparing for this? Have you thought about this as an everyday citizen? Have you thought about it? Does the fact that Cubans in itself historically leave, mean Cayman has avoided even culture and labor market pressures? Or have we simply delayed facing them? Because what happens when one doesn't want to go anywhere and they go through the political asylum process and they actually get through? What happens? 345-936-8255 is the number to call in live. 345-936-8255. Now, we look at international laws as well. And I'm deliberately dropping these questions because I'm hoping I could spark some discussion from you. You just had a power surge. Spark some discussion from you and to get your feedback. Okay, but these are real questions that we should, as everyday citizens, policymakers, and leaders, which we know our leaders are publicly actually preparing. And I'm happy that that was a part of the headlines. 345-936-8255 is the number to call in should you wish to be part of this discussion. When we look at international law, migration is not just local. And there we go. Hold on. Good evening, caller. You're live.
Good evening, Sabrina. How are you?
Hi, I'm fine, thank you. What's on your mind?
I'm doing. Well, in regards to immigration, I'm just trying to. I kind of like cut out a bit. What was the prior question that you had mentioned?
In regards to immigration itself?
Yes.
Whether or not we're prepared for this, should the structure change, the dynamics change, and people wanting to stay versus those, we've had it in the past where they would arrive, but then they would leave as the Cubans. What if that changes?
Yeah, I mean, in regards to like immigration now in Cayman, it like, I can't really speak for everybody, but I do know that a lot of like the young people, they're like, yeah, we're going to just get our degrees elsewhere and we're just going to leave and we're not going to come back for a plethora of reasons.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, I mean, I don't want to dox myself or anything, but like, let's put it this way. I have a STEM degree and I got it in America. And quite frankly, I went to go work at, one of the other firms on the island in accounting. And, I was like, hey, I can't have off this salary. So I decided to take my money and go to the United States where I know that my money could, be that I could make my money work for me, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you see that in housing, right? So,
So do you
so
feel
I, I do,
as a young person that the options of remaining here and opportunities are becoming further and further away, slimmer and slimmer? Because to be direct with your first, I had two questions. What happens
yeah.
when migration is not transient but permanent? And
Mhm.
what happens? Does the fact that Cubans historically leave mean Cayman has avoided cultural or even labor market pressures, or have we simply delayed facing them? Which is pretty much what I said, but those were the two questions last posed.
Yeah, I think like basically it's going to be more permanent because, as more young people are leaving
Mm-hmm.
and, more native Caymanians leave the country, which they are, you're going to see more immigrants coming in and, trying to establish themselves and having a more permanent position. So yeah, like I definitely think it'll be more permanent in that regard, regarding the Cubans migrating, with migrating really.
Mm-hmm. Well, what would you say to
So
the
I'm
younger generations where, that the young men and women who are overseas getting their tertiary studies, you're seeing how connected we are on platforms such as this. What do you think they're feeling, where even identifying Cayman is concerned and hopes of returning?
Well, Sabrina, I can't really be like a mouthpiece for all of them, but I can only speak from my experience,
Yeah.
right? So
Hmm.
I'll say this, a house in Cayman, like maybe like a 2-bedroom, you're looking at maybe $400,000 or $500,000 KYD before
Hmm.
closing, right?
Hmm.
After closing, you're gonna have to add on realtors fees, stamp duty is waived, and any other closing fees in regards to like title, the bureaucratic
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
So you're probably looking at like, 400 plus. That's a $400,000 house or $500,000 plus, and really and truly, Sabrina, what they're all doing is they're just playing the same game I'm making. If they have options to go somewhere else
Hmm.
where housing's cheaper and more affordable, then they'll do that, right? Because why? And why would any young Caymanian go back to their own country that is actively hostile towards them, right? Like even on your show, you had mentioned before that there's a lot of workplace bullying with the immigrants, how they treat Caymanians very badly.
Hmm.
Housing prices is through the roof. Cost of living is ridiculous. Employers don't really pay us in KYD anymore. They want to pay us in US for ease of access for their banks. So we're losing our purchasing power through a loss on currency exchange.
Right there by
So
20%. Hmm.
yeah, so like, you know what I mean? They're all thinking the same thing I'm doing. Nobody's just really saying it out loud. You know what I
Ah,
mean?
right, right, right. So you
So
have to pretty much make sure you tighten up your belts and braces, see it for what it is, and adjust your sales accordingly to fit your needs. But this is why we're having these type of conversations, as emotive as they are. Not everybody is capable of seeing it for what it is. So I'm happy that you're actually sharing this from your perspective, but hence some of the topics that we actually discuss in this space.
right, yeah, because all all I'm trying to say is that like Cayman, it has it has slowly become it became very heavy on immigration labor, right? Like you yourself, I believe, mentioned it. What's the stat? Like 6 to 7% of people who come to Cayman are work permit holders,
Hmm.
and then there's like less than
There's
28% of
20,
us left over.
yes, for a generational, yes.
Yeah, for generational Caymanians, like you know, that's what I'm saying. It's like we heavily rely on
Import.
immigrant labor.
Hmm.
Yeah, we import immigrant labor, right? So basically, what companies are doing is they're just saying, okay, well, Caymanians don't really, I mean, I can't really speak like Sabrina, I can't speak for like all jobs. I'm only speaking for like, the high skilled labor positions,
Yeah. The, the
like
the unskilled, the
the
trade, some of the
lawyers.
trade, the lower trades. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, what I'm talking. You need like certain skills or qualifications in order to maintain the job, right?
Right.
So like for like high skilled labor jobs, basically I think that what the Caymanians are doing is that that these other companies, right? They're offering Caymanians in USD, and they would make the same offer to the foreigner. But the Caymanian, he realizes that, hey,
It's at the
like
end.
if he has options, you know, if he have options and he was given that same options, maybe somewhere in America where the CPI or cost of living is a lot lower, the Caymanian's going to take that, right?
Yeah.
Because housing's going to be cheaper, you know, health insurance is going to be cheaper. Well, for the most part, that depends in America, you know, but generally things are cheaper. Generally speaking, it's a lot cheaper to live in America than it is in Cayman, right? Except if you live in like New York or California.
Yeah,
but
well, the higher end,
those
the
are
states.
outliers.
Correct. But it is.
And so, you know, but what I'm trying to say though, Sabrina, is that it's a balancing act, right?
Yeah.
Because Caymanians don't feel like we have a place. Like, Sabrina, I want to live in Cayman. Like, I don't want to be, you know what I mean? Don't get me wrong. I've grown to, you know, learn to appreciate and value America and, you know, what this country stands for. But like, ideally, you know, I wish that my country would give me the same opportunities in terms of salary growth and housing affordability that I would normally get in the United States. Because it don't make sense for me logically if I put my blood, sweat, and tears into studying for something that's in a STEM field and yield no fruit from it when I can get even better fruit somewhere in a foreign land. That don't make sense to me. And that's what you're going to cause, Sabrina. You're going to cause a brain drain in your society.
Yeah.
So all the smart Caymanians are going to just end up leaving, getting better fruit in other foreign lands. And then where does that leave all the other Caymanians?
Yeah.
Because now the innovators and the entrepreneurs and the ones who do have those high skills won't be able to innovate and create within their own country. And instead they'll just do it in foreign lands. And that's where we're having that problem.
I see even where there's some other jurisdictions in the region, Caribbean, that when you do even the exchange, the cost of, even though they may have their own issues, but even other jurisdictions, you have opportunities and the cost of living is different. So it's not like it's a Caribbean thing.
No, it's not a Caribbean thing.
No, it's not. So it is a balancing act. And as you can see, when I read the global headlines, that our premier was into a retreat, and that is what they were actually looking at: immigration reform and cost of living. So it looks as though their hands are on the pulse and trying to address this. But will it be enough, or how quickly could we turn this sail around so that young persons like yourselves and all of those who are seeing it almost as a fading wish will actually says, wow, there's a light at the tunnel, you know? So it appears as though they're trying to do it, but it's not an easy fix.
No, and nor, like, Sabrina, we, you know, I can't, like I said, I'm not a spokesperson for like, all young people.
Understood. We're just having this conversation. You're not speaking for everyone.
Yeah. I'm not really speaking for everybody, but like, I do understand that, you know, me as a young individual myself, I do know that laws take time to, you know, be implemented, and then reform has to happen over years. Like, honestly, Sabrina, I'm really glad to see that those reformations are happening now, because when I was in Cayman in 2018, 2019, none of that was really happening, you know? So yes, like, that's one thing I would say I'm very proud of my country about, is that we're still making that pebble we're still putting our foot in the right direction.
Right.
And we're trying to improve systems, and we're trying to get our reforms into place. And, you know, I think these are good things, you know? It just takes a matter of time. Like, it'll take time for it to implement and trickle down, if that makes sense. Right.
But at least what you're saying, what I'm getting from this, is that there's no longer talk. We're seeing action. And we can't just talk about it. And if there's unintended consequences, you're hoping that they can act swiftly enough so that the damage does not continue and that it can be eventually repaired. But the aim is really to not make the next generation, and for those growing older, that we have our dignity, that we see it where it's not just a far reach. We were speaking yesterday, I don't know if you were on yesterday, about pension and medical insurance. And we're seeing where some of our persons are not seeing it able to retire here as Caymanians because of the cost of medical insurance in itself. And even the payouts. And oh, for the record, for those persons who tuned in yesterday, I did get confirmation from my family member. It wasn't a payout. Apparently, the pension provider that they were with offered them yearly payouts. So that family member opted to get a payout per year until it's done. So, caller, not to digress, but I just had to clear that up because, they were saying, oh, they wanted more parallel. There's a disparity between the government pension reform and pensions and the private sector pensions. And I know a family member who had reached that retirement age, but what I understood is that they got a lump sum. No, they do, but they chose the annual payout, not the monthly. You see what I'm saying? So to me, in my head, not understanding, but people kept saying, no, there is no lump sum. They were right. And, but what we're seeing now, that once you are with the statutory authorities, once you're working in the private sector, if you're not working for government, that once you reach that retirement age, at the rate things are going now, persons are saying, we're going to all end up on DFA. Because it's the cost of living. If you still have a mortgage, you're either going to choose between your mortgage, your light, your food. And it's your quality of life has significantly changed. But that in itself, caller, nationally, the cost that it will be for this country is not sustainable if that continues to build.
Well, what's going to end up happening, and you already see it a lot more now than you did at least 5 or 10 years ago, right? Because, inflation. But what I would say though is that, you're going to, like Cayman, and I don't mean to sound very dystopian or I don't want to be like a doomer when I say this, if you try and get my drift here, but like the way how I see the Caymanian economy going is that there's going to be certain groups of individuals who've already laid the foundation, and they will be very, very wealthy, right? And wealth will be concentrated at the very top almost. And then everybody else is going to be almost like at the bottom, either, making a menial salary or, there's not going to be much room for them to make money. That's just how I see the country ending up, because remember, Sabrina, like, you have institutional investors that can buy land in Cayman. You understand? So even if I do, like, assuming that inflation doesn't move my money or reduce the value of my money, let's say, I'll give you a prime example, right? And here's how bad it is, in my opinion. You have, like, let's say you save up for a $500,000 house, right? I think you need to put like 20%, or is it 10% in Cayman?
It all depends. Sometimes it's 5%. It all depends. Sometimes the bank will even give you 100% financing based on the value, your debt service ratio, your age. But let's do it at 10% just for the conversation. 5 to 10%.
We say, okay, so you save up, like, let's say $50,000 and you won't buy this $500,000 house, right? There's two problems now, right? The first problem is that what is the average salary in Cayman, right? That's the first problem. You have to save up $50,000. I don't believe, in my God's honest opinion, that the average Caymanian is making over 6 figures. You understand? I think they're making between like 59 to 63,000 KYD, right? And all I'm saying is that, okay, so like they save up a house and it takes them 3 years to save up that house. Okay, 3 years passed. That house has now gone up to 550,000. You see what I'm trying to say? That's the first problem, right? Inflation is increasing the value of the house, shifting the goalpost and reducing the value of your money, right? So it's shifting the goalpost. That's number one problem. Number two problem is that you have institutional investors. The institutional investors will come in and they will look at the first time Cayman, they will literally laugh. Like, they're not going to laugh directly at you. You and I both know this, Sabrina, but they're going to smile. They're going to smile and say, oh, your little $50,000? That's cute. Here's $600,000 all cash up front. no questions, no inspections. Let's
Automatically
close and buy
kick you
that
out
house.
of it. And that's a cash offer. Who wouldn't want to go for that?
Exactly my point, Sabrina.
Mm-hmm.
So now you got people coming in from like, Austria, Germany, Switzerland, all in places. They're coming in and they're just buying houses outright cash. And then they're probably going to end up either turning them into rental units or commercial buildings.
That's where the land banking and property banking conversation comes in, that I know was widely spoken about as well. And I don't know if that's one of the things. We spoke about affordable housing, access to affordable housing here for our Caymanians, but the overarching conversation, and even Mr. Roy Bodden spoke about this into his book, I recall, that these are things that have been harped on decades and decades before, and now it's coming home to roost. And here you are now speaking of it. At what point do we draw the line, understanding then that financial services, tourism, and in this case, monies that we make from planning and sale of property is in our economy to keep us going? Where do you draw the line is the big question to ask. That's the national
Absolutely.
question. Where do you draw the line?
And honestly, Sabrina, I think, in my humble opinion, they need to start drawing that line as soon as possible, because here's the thing. Cayman is not America. Will you agree with me on that?
I agree, but we have definitely taken on those characteristics. We're even speaking as though we're independent, and we're not. So I feel, based on, and I've said it here a number of times on the show, caller, we speak as though we're independent. And even Denny, a huge contributor to the show, based on the conversations and the feedbacks that we're getting, and some of even the comments that we have on certain articles, it looks as though we're leaning to prefer dictatorship style of governance.
Yeah. And, but that's what I'm trying to say, is that Cayman is not the United States. Sabrina, I went back there, I think, I didn't even recognize my own country. They have a 4-way now down by, I can't remember which road, but it's like in Bodden town. But anyways, I digress. My country has changed a lot, right? My country has changed so much, Sabrina. I was looking at the road and I was driving down the road. I was like, yo, what is, we got bridge now? We got
Where
bridge?
was this? Where was this? Bodden town?
It was, like Savannah?
Yeah.
Where you like driving down and there's like a little 4-way now from the Savannah bypass.
Oh, you mean there's a roundabout there? There's a roundabout by Spots Newlands Road coming off the east-west arterial? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, that little roundabout. They got mini roundabout.
Yeah. Because they're trying to continue to go east with the road. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I saw that whole road going down there. I say, yo, I don't know where that road goes. I don't know where that road goes, nor do I want to find out.
It comes out in the front of Agricola, where Vigoro Nursery is agriculture grounds, but it's supposed to continue east. That is the alternate route, because we realize that we need an alternate route. But then there's some protected lands. We got the environmentalists, we got some hydrologist study and all sorts of stuff to deal with the runoff. And I guess there are lands that are owned that government we have to negotiate. So that's the bigger plan, that will be the extension of the bypass as an alternate route. We saw what happened with Ivan, where the road was cut off. East End was pretty much cut off. Parts of Bodden town, you had to use the back road. That would be like the I-75 versus the 95. That would be like a 75.
Okay, yeah, I see what you're saying now. But yeah, man, like what I'm trying to say though, in relations to Cayman is not America, is that Cayman has very few natural resources. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So land is not as abundant as it is in America. Like, I can be honest with you, Sabrina. Like, if I don't like living in one state, I say, yo, you know what? Bun this, I can pack my bags up and just drive, 8-10 hours, and I'm in a whole different state. You know what I mean? And then I can settle down and go and look land somewhere in the Midwest,
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I'm saying, there's an abundance of land or real estate in the United States. So it makes it a little bit more difficult for institutional investors to lock down the land with. Whereas in Cayman, land is very, very scarce, and I think what's going to end up happening is that eventually, if institutional investors just keep coming in, buying land on check, because remember, they got a lot of tax benefits doing that, right?
Right.
They just set up a shell company, LLC. Well, they probably put a holding company, then they make an LLC in Cayman, and then they buy the property, rent the property out, And then what they do is they take that LLC and that holding company, they flow that through to their main income in the United States. And then they just, whatever tax losses, whatever losses on paper that they have, quote unquote, from depreciation. And I don't really want to bore you with the details, but you see what I'm trying to say? They're going to record it as a loss on paper, and then they're going to lower their tax income. So it's in their economic.
It's a win-win for them. It's a win-win. But at the advantage of how our structured economy is.
Yes, exactly. Because Cayman is very business friendly to foreigners, right? Which I'm not saying is a bad thing. At one point, we needed that, Sabrina. We needed these businesses to come in and invest and grow our country.
But not to leave the people behind where they do not feel as though they have the option or the ability to be a part, to own a part of their own, and to even survive in their own country.
Yes.
Not at that expense is what I'm saying. There's one thing of keeping, diversifying our portfolios, making sure that money is through and through our economy so that everyone enjoys a piece of the pie. But when your actual indigenous people, your generational people are feeling that, oh my gosh, I'm seeing everybody enjoying the feast, but I'm only getting a few crumbs. Now, how do you actually correct that balance is what I'm feeling Caymanians are saying.
Yes. And the thing is like, it's the goalpost for us is a lot harder in our own country than it is in other countries, Sabrina. Believe it or not.
Do you think it's the size? Do you think it's the size? Like you actually said, if you didn't see your way forward in one state, you just move to another state that may provide other opportunities for the Cayman Islands and small island development states. We don't have that luxury. You either stay and, God forbid, if you're blackballed, political, just hit you. Because of the very shared downsides of being a small island development state. Sometimes your only other option is to actually leave the jurisdiction. We don't have that privilege, Caymanians, if you do not have an alternative, unless you married to an expat or you get a job offering somewhere else and you go through the process in another man's country to make you feel appreciated. Small island development states don't have that. And you have every Caymanian that actually wants to leave home. They want to study. They want to come back. They want to be a part of society. But the very sheer size and the disadvantages possibly of political blackmailing or balling or being, you understand, just the very dynamics of our size could actually turn a lot of our future Caymanians from even wanting to come back home.
You want me to, well, I don't really want to name names or anything, but I just want to keep as informal as possible. But you want me to tell you what the straw for the camel, like, you ever heard that saying, the straw that broke the camel's back?
All the time. My grandmother used to say.
Yeah. So the straw that broke the camel's back for me, Sabrina, was when I got an offer letter for $45,000 US per year. And I had a degree in accounting. Oh, wow. That was the straw that broke the camel's back for me, Sabrina. And after that, and this was one of the firms in Cayman.
And this was local. That offer was made to you here in Cayman.
Yes, 45,000 KYD per year, right? I looked at that offer and I said, no. And I already had options. So I said, no, I'm not doing this. I'm leaving.
But for some may feel that was okay, but that was an insult to you. That was an insult to you, and you know your worth.
I went to the United States with my same degree, and I got an even great. I got, I think, 20% above that. So I probably like maybe when I first started off, it was like 60 US, right? So that goes to tell me that companies in Cayman, they say, oh, well, that's fair. And there's a reason why people say, oh, well, you should be grateful and take this lower salary. And it's boomer propaganda, right? It's boomer propaganda. It's old people who have already established themselves, whether it be Caymanian, German, or whatever. They will come in and they'll say, oh, well, I made that money when I was starting, so you need to make that money when you're starting. But Sabrina, they don't understand the concept of inflation. When you bring up how much they bought their house, 20 years from now, they don't want to talk about that, Sabrina, because then they realize, oh, wow, I had greater purchasing power than what the millennials and Gen Zs have now. Gen Zs have in the United States 80% less purchasing power than the boomers did when they were their age, Sabrina.
Like my
that's
age.
why
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
That's why I'm saying that.
There's a question for you. If all the young Caymanians leave, how does that help fix the issues in Cayman? That's what I was going to ask as well, to be honest. Somebody has to stay and fight.
Yes. And what I'm saying, Sabrina, is that it's not going to help Cayman as a whole.
Okay.
It's actually going to do the opposite. And that is the problem, Sabrina. You know, I'm living proof of this. And there's other Caymanians out there in the world that don't really want to say much and want to keep to themselves and stay out of it, you know? But they're also living proof of that. I'm almost positive that, like, last time I read, there were, like, I think it was in the Cayman comes by, I can't remember, but there was a doctor in Canada and he was a Caymanian and he's living in Canada.
I know of
so
a few.
Like
I have a number of them that I know, and I have been, in my short time, I was trying to create the environment where we come back and embrace them, but the environment just was not embracing. And they're like, no, not what I'm able to set up in another man's country. It's as though I feel more accepted in another person's country than I am here. And I've even spoken to a nurse that I knew personally, and I had a very good conversation with her overseas, and just trying to tell her to come back. You know, of course, I couldn't get involved in the employment side of things, but I let them know from the ministerial perspective what I wanted to put in place so it would make the environment more conducive. And, you know, unfortunately, well, of course, you saw the results. But now to hear this from yourselves, yes, at the end of the day, we need to, it's sad that we are having this conversation and we see our numbers of generational Caymanians, but I'm not going to say all hope is lost. I am hoping that more and more we will have the comfort, because you said it more than once in this discussion. That is why they stick to themselves. They don't say anything. That is what I'm trying to break. Because the more silent we take or become, the more the strongholds are filled by the very same egos and personalities that is creating these environments, that is stopping you, that is making another jurisdiction look more attractive than your very own. And I know it takes a lot of guts. And I thank you for calling. It takes a lot of guts. You think it's easy for me to do this? It's not.
Oh, no, absolutely
it's not. I have a target on my back, as a matter of fact, in my forehead. I do.
Yeah.
But somebody got to do it. Hence, I've elevated talk. And I thank you for breaking the mold. And I thank you for calling in.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, though, like, Sabrina, like, anybody in, like, that says, oh, Caymanians aren't smart and that we're stupid savages or whatever they want to call us, they say, oh, we're lazy and all this. That's not true. That's not true. You understand? Because I'm going to tell you one thing for a fact. I ever come down to Cayman, I will tell you that I'm very, very educated. I'm very qualified to do what I do. You understand? That's not the issue, right? That we're having in Cayman. The issue that we're having in Cayman is that we are being set up to fail we're set up to fail on an economic level, on a work level, on a social level. Like, we're being isolated, right? And ostracized.
How did you come to that conclusion? There's a reason why I asked you that conversation, that question. How did you come to that conversation, to that decision?
Well, for the economic part, I looked at, Sariba, right? If you look at houses, right? Oh, hold on. Sorry, 1 second. If you look at, like, houses, from like 10 or 15 years ago, if you go and ask any other old person, how much did you buy your first house for? They say, oh, I bought my first house for, $75,000. I bought my first house for 120. I just did the math. I just looked at the numbers and I said, wow, the rate of inflation, right? The way how houses were priced at 20 years ago to where they're at now, like, it makes it virtually impossible. And then if you look at the average salaries, like, I see that housing is under attack in Cayman. Groceries are under attack in Cayman. Like, anybody who keeps up and tracks prices will tell you that inflation has skyrocketed in Cayman. That's my number one thing where I say that we feel isolated. because then we can only buy certain few resources. Because, like I said before, if all the smart Caymanians leave and all the innovators and the creators and the entrepreneurs leaves, it leaves the low-skilled laborers.
Yes.
So now, Sabrina, you have low-skilled labor Caymanians who don't necessarily have the access or opportunities for education, right? Because of, I hate to say it, generational poverty.
They're fighting the grind to keep the lights on and can't even elevate themselves because there is no bandwidth to do it. They're just fighting to keep the lights on.
Absolutely. So, it's very difficult. And Sabrina, it is very, very difficult to go to school at night while working in the day and potentially taking care of a family and studying and passing, right? It's very, very difficult to juggle 3 hats at once. So that's the first part that I'm saying, right? The second part is that, when I see it socially, we've already talked about this before, Sabrina, workplace bullying, right? They look at us Caymanians as second-class citizens. They don't care about us. It would be in their best interest to lowball us and say, oh, well, I made that when I was in 2001. And I'm like, yeah, that's 2001. This is 26. You can't give me the same salary that you did in 2021 and 2026. That's not how markets work, right? And then they say, oh, see, these Caymanians are lazy because I gave them a job and they rejected. Like, that's how they behave, Sabrina. And then they take those rejections, they go to the labor board and say, see, look, I provided a Caymanian with this job. He just didn't want to take it because he didn't want to work. And they gaslight us, Sabrina. That's what they do in our own country. It's corporate gaslighting, and they know they can get away with this too, because here's a fun fact. Certain degrees or certain fields or industries that you work in, they're all oligopoly. They all are separate monopolies, and they talk to one another. So if you make one mad, the other one's going to realize, and then they'll just blackball you out of the industry. That's really what's going to happen.
In your opinion, do you have any idea what percentage of young Caymanians are investing early in life? Like, I mean, obviously you got your head on your shoulder. You've looked at your own situation. You've made the decision. You were going to know your value and you made the decision to migrate someplace else and really know your worth. But do you have any idea of what a percentage would be like for young Caymanians who invest early in life, be it here or even overseas? How many even think about that?
Well, honestly, Sabrina, I was also curious about that because there's a book I read a while back. It's called The Richest Man in Babylon, right? And one of the rules that they said was pay yourself first and then pay the king, right? So I've noticed, and I can't really give you a set number or anything, but I can tell you based on conversations that I've had with other Caymanians as well as other Americans. And the conclusion that I come up to right now, Sabrina, is that people are not saving for retirement. People don't have like $1,000 in an emergency fund.
They don't have
it's very difficult. Yeah, they don't have funds saved up in the event that something happens to them, right? If they run into like a $3,000 emergency, they got to go take out a loan from the bank or use a credit card.
The caller said that yesterday, people are one medical crisis away from being bankrupt or pretty much out of a house. And we have a lot of people that are not even paycheck to paycheck because some of them have to go and get a loan or till payday or salary advance. And one may say, well, if you can't pay 1 month, how are you going to pay the next? But that is just a reality. And I mean, even yesterday, a caller shared that, with their sibling, if they don't actually fill the gap sometimes and they're making a decent salary, because I did Google, thanks to Uncle Google, the average salary here in Cayman is approximately $3,224 to $4,000 a month. $3,000 to $4,000, 30. Yeah, that's like $38.89 US average to $4,000 US a month. So that's the average salary, thanks to Uncle Google, that we have here. And when the caller yesterday was reminiscing, that she thankfully was one of the early ones who was able to have income for oneself by building apartments. But then the sister now was a little different. And if she don't fill that gap, even with food, they are going to lose it. And how many families are actually going through that? And it's not that they're living above their means. When you look at the average salary, the average cost of living, the average cost of rent for somewhere that is decent and not over your head, how far can $4,000 as an income go? And worse, if
And
you're not working for government and deductions have to come out of that for your medical, for your pension.
exactly my point. And here's the thing, right? I have a weird theory. So indulge me for a bit, right? I have a theory. And I don't think that Caymanians are necessarily like below the poverty line, but I think that there's something that I would like to dub the working poor,
Okay.
right?
A new
So
category. Mm-hmm.
yeah, so hear me out, Sabrina, right? They're not necessarily thriving and saving money and have disposable income at the end of the day. Because I don't know what, and like, yes, I'm an accountant by trade, right? But I think that rich should be defined as if you make money and you spend money and you have a little bit left to save over each month, that is rich in my eyes.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think Caymanians now are necessarily rich. I think what they're doing is that they're going through, as you said, they're working and they're paying off whatever bills they have. Their
Mm-hmm.
rent bill, their increased light bill, their
And
water bill,
hoping nothing
whatever,
happens. Mm-hmm. And hoping no
right?
emergency happens.
And here's the dangerous thing, right? Especially with companies like CUC and the Water Authority and them places, right? If the price goes up for their services, because I'm almost positive that their prices fluctuate based on seasons. If it's really hot, light bill gone up.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So my theory is that I think what's happening in Cayman is that wages are stagnant while everything else is going up in value. Because what employers are doing now is they're just saying, oh, here's a little 2%, if you're lucky, a 2% or 3% cost of living adjustment, but they're stagnating in their career path, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because they're stuck, they're pigeonholed. And eventually, you and I both know that there are certain jobs that employers will not pay you a dime more for. There's a salary band,
It's true. Because of what the expertise or the qualifications need to do a job.
Right.
You're stuck there.
Yeah, you are capped at a certain salary. So my thing is like, if you go through, right, and you're working and you're barely making money and you get locked into the salary band max threshold,
Mm-hmm.
any market fluctuations or market adjustment increases on goods or services will eventually force people to end up using their credit cards.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And you don't want to be in a situation, and trust me, Sabrina, it's a very tough position to be in when you have to use your credit card to buy groceries.
Yeah.
You understand?
You know what those interest rates are if you can't pay that off in full the end of the month, and it keeps skyrocketing and mounting and mounting and mounting and mounting.
Yeah, it's a form of economic slavery.
Mm-hmm.
I don't listen, another hot take, and I talk to my brethren about this all the time who live in Cayman. I said, yo, listen, bro, slavery didn't vanish. We just replaced it with loans.
And that's how people survived. That's how people survive. And it's tricky, as you rightfully say, because you can get into this spiral that once you can't pay 1 month, how you gonna pay 2 and 3? Okay.
Right.
And like what you said if you have to find yourself using your credit card to purchase your groceries because your salary just didn't go the distance, you're already in problems. And worse, if that credit card had a previous balance.
Right. And then you haven't paid it off. Now you're paying like average. I think one of the credit cards we have is kind of funny, but we if you don't pay off the full balance by X amount, you got to pay 27% interest.
Mm-hmm.
I thank God I'm put in a position where, I can pay off my credit cards, but I would not want to be paying 27% interest on a $3,000 outstanding balance. That's all I'm going to say. You know what I mean? That's tough.
But I'm happy that you're one in the industry. You understand it. And this is why I'm so happy that you're actually here talking. Because how much other young persons or even adults understand that? And if we can have these open conversations, because as a US citizen, green card holder, we know how easy it is for you to get into credit card debt. Everywhere you go, you get an additional 25% off with your purchase today if you just sign up for a credit card. And bang, just put in your credit card. And it's so tempting. And all of a sudden, you're not even realizing you went there to pay for whatever your purchase was of the day, but you not only left not paying for that purchase at what it was costing then. You took the offer for the credit card and you added probably 27% off of that purchase, where if you had just paid you go, you would have been fine. But it is so tempting. And having young persons like yourself speak on this, identify it, don't get caught in the trap, leads me to this other question to you. You mentioned the cost of utilities. There can also go with the cost of food as well. But since you mentioned utilities, have you actually looked into the advantage of our utilities company here in the Cayman Islands switching to nuclear power generation? Have you looked at that? Because everyone pulls up CUC and this sort of stuff, but have you actually looked into that?
Well, see, from what I understand with like nuclear power and solar power, I don't think, in my honest opinion, Cayman as a whole, right, is going to be like, yeah, we want nuclear power stations, because there's you and I both know that throughout the course of history, there's always been like a bad taste in people's mouth when they hear the N word, right?
Yeah.
So they're like, oh, nuclear?
Nuclear.
Hiroshima,
Oh my God.
Nagasaki.
Yeah. Cancer, everything.
Like,
yeah. We're going to explode. We're not going to find us. Yeah.
Yeah. So like, but that's more of like, that's a NIMBY situation. You know what a NIMBY is? It's an American term I learned. It means not in my backyard.
Okay.
So it's just a group of people who own like properties and land in America. And whenever the government tries to impose like, new ways to help improve the infrastructure, these people come out and legislate against them and say no. I think Cayman is full of NIMBYs and zoning laws, right? So they only have certain areas that are zoned for like residential or whatever. So like, in my honest opinion, like when it comes to like solar panels, well, nuclear, I really, really think that you're going to have an uphill battle when it comes to like property owners, because you probably got people who own these properties that are going to go to the government and actively fight against that, especially if they got a nuclear power plant next to their house in Bodden Town. You know what I mean?
No, but I mean, looking at, people are saying that the cost of electricity, it's just too much through the roof. Looking at changing over from, or including nuclear power versus fossil could probably lower your bills. Have you looked at that could be an automatic impact in lowering or assisting in lowering the cost of living here?
Yes, and I agree with you too. So in theory, yes, I would agree with solar panels. This is my, like, if I had to choose between nuclear and solar panels,
okay,
I would err on the side of solar panels. But the thing is like, when we're trying to implement solar panels, right, we need to implement like certain incentives. Like the government needs to give certain incentives for people to build solar panels, right? Kind of like what they did in the US. They had like it was like an EV credit of like 7,500. So I believe that also applied to solar panels as well. Correct me if I'm wrong in the chat, Shout out to my Caymanians. But, I think that if we allow, like, if we legislate for that and have like solar farms, maybe that could end up combating against CUC, right? But the thing is like with CUC, they're going to try to actively lobby against that because it goes against their best interests. Because you and I both know, Sandra, that the number one thing that all
Sabrina.
corporations hate is competition. They do not want to compete. They want to be the monopoly. That is every company's end goal, right? So it's going to be it's going to be less of an uphill battle, but I feel like Caymanians, in my opinion, will be more on board with the solar than with the nuclear. That's step one. Step two is we would need to bring in the talent, right? We would need to bring in the engineers and the solar panel engineers and the talent on board within the government to help with the solar panels, right? Because those things require maintenance. You have to get parts for it. And, there's a lot of semiconductor chips that go in there as well. And, you and I both know that the United States right now and China, they're not really best friends, and it's turned into a giant tariff war. Not trying to get political, but these are natural resources that we would need to acquire. So it would make it a little bit more challenging to get those
but
things.
I wasn't really talking about like government doing one. It was just whoever or CUC in it talking about, but by them choosing to go nuclear, in helping lower the cost of utilities. I wasn't actually asking the question from the perspective of government doing it, because I'm quite sure persons will say, what will happen when that happens? Everything government, it's a blanket statement. Everything government touches, it never usually work out, maybe private-public partnership. But the core question was everyone saying, okay, CUC has established themselves here. There are joint agreements. They're providing our only electricity source here. What if they wanted to incorporate that type of material in order to lower the cost, is where that was coming from, not for government.
Oh, not the government. Because I was thinking more like government, private,
CUC.
you know what I mean?
No, just to help lower their costs, their overhead, because they are a business. They do have their overheads. You understand? Introducing these different types, getting rid of fossil and going nuclear, that was where the question was derived.
Okay, all right, no problem. I understand where the question is now. So, like, in regards to like CUC implemented that, and if they want to if they decide, hey, we should go to, we could go to solar and it'll lower overhead, in the next like 5-10 years, then absolutely. And another thing that I think the government should do is give them incentives to do that, right? Because it'll benefit Cayman, in my opinion, across the board.
Because we all use electricity.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is, Sabrina, is that you and I both know that the first like year or 2 years, the solar panel thing is not really going to be generating money because of all the implementation and logistics that go behind it.
Yeah.
But within year 3, 4, and 5, there will be positive ROI, in my opinion. I mean,
that's rate of return, like an investment.
Yeah. Sorry, it's your rate of return. Yeah. I
just making sure people follow the conversation.
Yeah. No, you're fine. I normally think in terms of like, business, but like I think that, maybe year 3 or 4 or 5, we'll see positive growth in terms of profits for that. So like, at the end of the day, I think that, the main issue is, getting like if CUC wants to implement this and they post this as like I don't really remember too much about I'm more familiar with US law, but they normally post it as like a bill and then it goes into Congress and then it gets passed into a law. So if it was posted as like a bill originally in Cayman, then I think other Caymanians should be like, yeah, let's do this. This will help our island,
I think it would definitely have to have some national discussion in regards to making our people know. And that's where I'm quite sure the Ministry of Sustainability would come in. If that is another source, there has been some discussions around it, to be honest, for power generation. And we understand the difference between fossil fuel, even solar. When you look the difference between solar and nuclear power, you get more stability from the nuclear, but people are fearful of the nuclear, the N word. And that is why I feel a lot more of public education about it and explaining the difference, showing the pros, the cons, and other means will help be more embracing of it at the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, Sabrina, in anything you talk about, right, whether it be nuclear energy or anything that proposes some degree of change in Cayman, Caymanians, by and large, and I don't mean to speak bad about our people, I'm the same way, right? We are initially hesitant to change. Right? We don't like change. We like things to stay the same and run the course as it is, right? Because if we don't have enough knowledge on that new idea or that topic, in my mind, Sabrina, like I'm gonna be like, yo, I don't know enough about this.
Shut that down.
No.
Stick with what you know.
Shut that down.
Stick with what you know.
Yeah. I'm gonna stick with what I know. That's right. Because that's how we essentially survived. We stuck with what we know and we did what worked for us as seafarers, We didn't deviate, but we didn't deviate or innovate or anything, but like, I'm just saying that like, as of right now for where I stand, if Cayman introduces maybe more solar farms, that also will get Caymanians more jobs, right? They'll be able to do trade jobs. They will be solar panel engineers. You know how much money that makes, Sabrina? You could probably make like 6 figures doing that, fixing solar panel farms. That's good money in the Caymanians' hands. And then open up a school or like a trades, like not really a trade school, but like on the job learning and train these Caymanians how to manage and operate the solar farms, yeah,
There are a lot of employment opportunities in that region, and there's coding along with that as well. There's different
Yes.
parts of it. There's just that is big. But one of the things that people were saying, we only have X amount of land mass. And look at the counter to that now. There's one thing of having solar farms, but they take up a lot of land mass. And here we are asking for access to affordable land so that we can get to own or feel like we own a piece of our own country. Why not pay people to put these solar panels on their buildings? You understand what I'm saying? Instead of taking up all of the land, it could be used for agriculture, could be used for schools, could be used for hospitals, could be used for housing, and then amend some of the planning legislation then that would allow persons to do rooftop solar. And then everyone wins. And then whoever is putting it on your roof, let's say you pay me something for it. Let's say if that's the case, that a trajectory that CUC wants to go in, then they also give an incentive back for those persons who actually allow them to use their rooftop space. That's maybe an idea.
Right.
Food for thought.
Like lease out like a spot.
Yeah.
They would lease out like a square corner on the roof and pay the bank that.
So you're not eating up land space that could be used for other things like agriculture, for building homes, for building schools, for building hospitals. You understand?
Yeah, and honestly, Sabrina, like I've heard the argument before made, and my other question is okay, well, you think that's stopping all the institutional investors or the Germans or the Romans and the Philistines coming in buying the land? You think that's stopping them or what?
It's not.
Like, that's what I'm saying. It's like, we say as a population, oh, well, we have limited resources, but we're willing to give away our resources to people that don't even live there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it's like, to me, like, it don't make sense to me in my brain. Like the math, not really math with me on that one. But honestly, like, I think, a couple of steps in my opinion is that we need to start off with education, right? Because I do not believe, I don't believe that, I think we need to focus mostly on education. That's just my main concern. Like, we need to get like proper accredited universities and at least try to create some sort of incentive for Caymanians to have some sort of flexibilities. Maybe, I don't know, but I see education being a big issue because most of the times, most young people, we just end up leaving. We go to foreign lands, we get our degrees. And then when we come back, we get spit in the face and we're like, all right, cool. Well, Bundis, I can just stay in Canada.
Well, it sounds like that's a culture shift in the employment environment. And we have spoken about that 1-2 times here as well. It is a culture shift that has to change. And it's almost, and I have heard Caymanians say it on this platform and others, that a disadvantage, which is probably why you were lowballed, because they saw your nationality as being Caymanian. And that is not fair either. How do you stand up to say, look, pay me what I'm valued?
Right. And for me, like, an action that I took was, instead of like, it sounds bad to say it, but like, if I know the grass is greener on the other side, I have a duty, like I have a family, you know what I mean? So like, I gotta do what's in the best interest of my family and go and get where bread is abundant. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like oh, you're a traitor, you should have stayed and fought. And like, for me, I just saw an opportunity and I took it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And believe it or not, a lot of institutional investors, they're thinking the same way I thought. They saw an opportunity. They see people willingly give up land to them, so they're just taking it.
And what would you say to those?
We allow it.
What would you say to those persons who may be not theoretically savvy, but they are darn good at their hands? And I'm just not talking about, not that I'm putting down the construction industry, not that I'm putting down even hospitality by any means, but you just have those that are not savvy enough for the theoretical side, but you can't touch them when it comes to practical. And they may not necessarily be able to go to the Harvards, but you can mess with them when they find a trade and continuously elevate themselves. Everyone learns differently. What's your take on that one?
So
since you need a degree for everything nowadays.
Oh yeah, absolutely. We live in a society that is one giant, massive appeal to authority, right? Some people get degrees just for the sake of having degrees to say to other people who don't have degrees, I have a degree, therefore I'm smarter than you. That's not true, Sabrina. I have met many, there are many, even in Cayman, there's many brilliant accountants that don't necessarily have the CPA license or the degrees or the licenses or certifications. But I can tell you one thing, they are darn good at what they do.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, they are smart, you understand? So like, I don't really take into the whole appeal to authority thing. My degree, how I look at it, is just a useless piece of paper that gets me from point A to point B. It's like shoes, you understand?
Right.
Regarding, other trades and everything, everybody, I believe that everybody is intelligent in their own unique area, right?
Thank you.
Nobody is considered stupid, right? Because here's the thing, those seamen down at Georgetown, I have respect for them old heads that sit out there, that chop their fish and smoke their Benson and Hedges. You hear what I tell you?
I haven't heard that in a while.
Yeah. I will tell you, I have the utmost respect. I remember one time I was walking downtown and I was going up to Cas Noise, say, good morning, sir. How you doing? You catch anything? They're like, yeah, but we got some snapper. I'm like, all right, cool. Wanna do your thing,
Mm-hmm.
But those men have skills. They go out and they stay out for long periods of time. They know the island. They know the spots where the fish are most abundant. That is a skill, Sabrina.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody in Cayman has unique skills. And what I'm trying to say is that, like, I don't think that one skill is necessarily better than another skill. You can't compare apples and oranges. You understand?
Right.
You have a skill, Sabrina. You have the ability to speak to a group of people. You have a platform and you know how to engage people. That is a skill.
Mm-hmm.
I have a skill. All I do is just report, record, and analyze transactions. That's my skill, But I think that, if I were to give my piece of advice to the other people now in Cayman, one little bit of advice I would say is, if you have the ability to put money away, put a little bit of money away, and don't think, oh, I'm only putting $50 away. It just doesn't matter. I'm just gonna, no, every penny makes $1 and every dollar makes a $10 bill. You understand? It will grow over a period of time. My thing is like, I would put my money away in like a rainy day fund or a credit union and try to save up to at least have 3 to 6 months worth of expenses in the event that my employer decides to do some borderline racist behavior to me. I can just say, you know what? F you, I quit. And then just leave, You need to have that
like a buffer.
Safety net. Yeah, you need to have a buffer. That's the number one thing I'd recommend. My number two thing I would recommend is that, and this is only if, right? This is a huge if statement because there's quite a bit of people who can't really afford to do this, right? But if you have the ability to save up, if you have a little bit of disposable income, I would also start looking into retirement, right? You can't be relying on, pensions and government benefits and all these things, because eventually that's going to run out too. All right. So you need to be able to put money away for yourself, for your retirement, and that's that. And then, and I guess number three is like, try to save up, but you got to split your money, and everybody's financial situation is
different.
So I can't really give a one size fits all.
Yeah. But what I'm hearing from all of this is sacrifice and discipline. Sacrifice and discipline.
And it's tough. It's tough, Sabrina, because, we in Cayman, like, we as Caymanians, we are, believe it or not, we're very disciplined individuals. We're very focused and disciplined individuals. The only problem that's only happened recently in the course of a year is American influence.
Interesting.
Like our young people before, like now, we got like, a lot of them, like, I'm not trying to cast a net over, and
for
stereotype,
everybody.
But I'm saying, generally speaking, like, my mother used to say this too, like, sometimes you just really got to sacrifice, and it's going to be tough. But that's just my thoughts on it. But I don't really want to sound like I'm out of touch, because I also acknowledge the situation in which Caymanians are in. So it's very difficult, right? To draw a line in the sand with that. But I'm just like, for me, I think that, if people give if if people have the ability to save money and have disposable income, that's what I'd recommend them to do. And don't compare yourself to others. Comparison is the thief of joy. And also another thing too that really pisses me off is I see some people driving around with these expensive ass cars and they got like car loans that have like 20% interest rate. Do not do that, bro.
But
Do not do that.
caller, that
car-
question came up here the other day and a number of times. It's not like our locals or young people would not want to sacrifice that car loan for a townhouse, a piece of land, or even to finish or to start their home. But the banks are more inclined to give them a loan for a $60,000, $70,000 vehicle that depreciates 20% the second you drive it off the lot, than actually for them to buy a piece of land or a home or a townhouse, their first time home. So it's the way it is that I guess the banks are structured. That came up in a number of statements that are made here. But you're in the industry. Are you able to explain to the public how to determine whether what their inflation rate is? What our inflation rate is? Would you be able to do that? To explain to the public how to determine what each individual inflation rate is?
So like in terms of like individual inflation rates, normally what I did and to determine the rates before it came on was I believe that Cayman released it at one point on their website, and then they showed their CPI index. So they showed like how it, like the CPI is basically like your consumer price index. It's like a benchmark of like all goods and services, if that makes sense. So like they have it on the Cayman website that shows you the rate of inflation. But if you actually want to calculate it and figure out what your real wage should be, to make an argument to say, hey, because there is a way, because there's something called a nominal wage and a real wage.
Yeah,
so
a living wage and go ahead.
Yeah, so basically, because each year as inflation passed by, you would need to get that CPI number, and then you would need to put it in a formula. And it's a while since I've done it. This is like microeconomics. So you're taking me back quite a bit, So like there's a formula out there. Use ChatGPT or YouTube. Find that formula, and then you can calculate, like if you make 50,000 and like, let's say CPI is 5.5, you can say, oh, well, I should be making 57.5, and then you can bring that to your employer and say, hey, can I have my salary adjusted for inflation for this year? Or if you know that your employer is giving you less, you know that he's not really keeping up with inflation. So why work there?
This is why those financial reports released by the Statistics Office and why it's so important when the ESO, the Employment of Statistics, go around and gathering this data, that if you are so chosen to actually participate in those surveys, that it's important for you to tell them the truth, because this determines what's happening in our society.
Yeah, because like I don't know if it's still recent, but you can still get the CPI numbers from the government website. You would just need to look in like the treasury section, I believe. It's been a while since I looked at it, but
we'll double check that.
So like, yeah, but definitely you can look at the rate of inflation, how it's increased year over year. And once you get that increase and you get the increase number for like 2025 or 2026, you can you can do the calculation, go on YouTube or use ChatGPT and figure out what your real wage should be for the year 2026. So if your employer pays you less than that, guess what, Sabrina? He's paying you less than what inflation is. So you're losing money by staying at that job.
My God. Yeah, but that's a difficult conversation to be had nowadays, because people are even fearful of like doing what you're doing now. And for the record, I'm getting a comment that I posted on the screen. This young man is the most impressive guest that I've heard on your show. Now, if we can just get other young people to listen, and they're just sending those praying hands, hats off, and do a big kaboom.
Oh, thank you. Honestly, like, Sabrina, it's not me. It's the man upstairs. God gave me the opportunity to go into this field and learn, help people. And, like I said, I don't really want to dox myself too much, but currently right now I'm working in the United States with a company, and their entire goal is to help people rehabilitate from drugs
Uh-huh.
and to have them reconnect with their families and reintegrate, So like
Oh.
I've always been a man of the people, and I think that knowledge should be shared,
Mm-hmm.
We should,
Interesting.
we should, yeah, we should share knowledge. I'm not a gatekeeper of knowledge. You understand? We only do that. We only gatekeep knowledge because we're fearful that somebody else will take our job. A lot of old people do it in the profession as well.
Mm-hmm.
So you find out a lot, like, a lot of older people, whether they be Caymanian, Jamaican, whatever, they will gatekeep knowledge because they're afraid that the young person will come and take their job.
Which is why succession planning here has been the thing. And we're looking now and some of the fares of young persons locally as we continue to raise the age, and people are saying, no, but we have to raise the retirement age because some of the people are still willing to work. They still have debts, they still have mortgages, and they want to, even though the average in a perfect world, yeah, you should be retired by 65. Reality is that's not the reality. But when you look at what you're saying, it brings it all to home. Where do we then make space for the next generation to come?
Well, in my honest opinion, Sabrina, it's going to be an uphill battle. It's going to be an uphill battle. We have a lot that we need to talk about, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like your show is doing exactly that, right? You're educating the other Caymanians, young and old and whatever age range.
Mm-hmm.
You're doing your part, right? I also think a very important thing that has been taken from us is that, let me put it this way, the number one GDP generating industry in Cayman is banking. Is that correct?
Yes, that's financial set. Yeah, one of the key pillars. Yeah.
And here's my takeaway: the banks, they exploit the ignorance of people who are uneducated. I think that's exactly what they do, Sabrina. They take advantage of the ignorance of people because they don't understand how interest works, right? They don't understand this because most people who don't have that like expertise or that knowledge will just be like, oh, I just got paid $500 a month. And I'm like, bro, you are paying a 96-month loan on an $80,000 vehicle with a 20% interest rate. You are paying double what the vehicle is worth in interest.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So my personal takeaway is that, financial literacy is very important. I think that, if you live in Cayman, you need to, if you know that the number one industry is banking, it sounds bad to say, Sabrina, but like if you really want to make money, I would say cater to what the country is offering, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's why accounting, finance, business degrees, you can get a job quite easily in a business related field in Cayman. I'm not really too sure about like marketing or management or any of those, but I do know that accounting and finance, you can easily get a job, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like, that's like my thing is that if you live in a country and you know that the number one source of GDP is the banks, right? You gotta work with that and cater with it.
Yeah.
And it sounds bad to say, but like, I do know that there's a place for tourism, but I do believe that, the tourism sector also, like, what would benefit a lot of people in the tourism sector is maybe like a little crash course on like budgeting, planning,
we need to do that
knowledge.
nationally. We need to do that nationally. And this is why I'm so happy for you actually saying some of these things, because I welcomed on this space someone to come in from the bank, someone to come in from insurance industry, which we've had featured here. And the one young person that was recommended, they were blocked by their employer from appearing. And I have so this is why people like you with this expertise, with your knowledge, with your personal experience, so being so candid, for being so open, and I have identified that the space is civic, is helping one another as we educate, as we navigate this new norm of life. That's why this space exists. And I'm hoping that you participating today, how you've delivered, how you've articulated, how you've broken things down, using yourself as an example, that will encourage even more to impart their knowledge, because this is what I've been asking for from the day I got on, when we saw what the space was actually being created and how it was evolving. And I thank you. But I have the space is here, from health to women's health to dealing with mental issues, for dealing with finance, just speaking about current events. We're saying household budgeting, making that decision to leave home, to go off because that worked for you, showing us things that the average person would not identify, but you're able to do that in such a way that it still has respect. There's still dignity in it. And you're not coming across disrespectful by any means. And I'm happy for you imparting it. Yeah, I love that about you.
No, ma'am. I would listen, don't get me wrong. When I was younger, I was a little bit of a rambunctious individual, but I kind of now my temperament is my yoke is easy and my burden's light. You know what I mean? So, I try to help where I can. And, I think the best way to help my people is not really educating them in a condescending way,
right,
but sharing,
yes,
right? Because I want to share I like the idea of sharing my talents and my skills and what I know with even some of my friends. Sabrina, when I went down to Cayman, I was down, with my brethren, and we just went to Havana Club, and we were sitting there, having a couple of drinks, and he's like, yo, how you know this? And I'm like, yeah, this, how this is what you gotta do. And, he really, he really gravitated to that. And then he started sharing some things with me. And that's what Cayman is.
Yeah.
We have to share, right? Because he taught me something I didn't know. Yo, Sabrina, I don't know nothing about tourism.
Mm-hmm.
I do know from an economic or a money perspective on how tourism works, like the nature of it. I know it's seasonal, right?
Right.
So but I don't know how they operate, what they do, how they record certain things, how they make money, So that is something that I could learn as well.
Mm-hmm.
I go with the mentality that life and learning are all continuous things, right? You need to continually learn and grow, but you also have to be humble,
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
You got to learn to be humble and walk with a big stick, because I hate to break it to you, but there are other people out there that are smarter than me, better than me, and who know more than me, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what I do is, when I find those people who are smarter than me and better than me, instead of me getting defensive and saying, oh, he's just this and he got this, and try to character assassinate the person, I'm like, yo, boss, how did you come to that conclusion? How you show me what you did so that I can learn it and, improve,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's better to catch a fly with honey than it is with vinegar.
Correct. I see, though, that a lot of our people in our community, and just based on being in this space and creating this space, that at the end of the day, our people are hungry for knowledge, but yet we're fearful of asking the question because of, I guess, that it may be a dumb question. There's no dumb question. But the mere fact that we have persons like yourself that are still out there, let me tell you something, caller. This is a prayer and a dream come true, because you have given me hope. I could be honest with you, because I was wondering, am I doing something wrong? Yes, we do have commenters, but it's young persons like you. Somebody said earlier on in the comments, I need to have at least one show where we can encourage and attract even more persons like yourself, young persons, to come on and to just air where you're not judged here. It's respected. I want to hear all sides of it. But we are hungry for knowledge. We are hungry.
Yeah,
I see that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Like I said before, when I put it this way, a lot of rich/wealthy people, there's a reason why they give generic advice, right? It's not because they're trying to gatekeep or anything. No, it's just that what they're doing is so unique and niche and complex that when they do try to explain it in their language, it just goes over people's head because it's so complex, right? Because that's how these these Jeff Bezos and these Elon Musk people think and talk. they think in complex terms, right? They don't have the ability to take complex concepts and break them down so that somebody, a layman can understand it, right? So I think that in of itself is a skill. Like for me,
Right.
I try to take very complex, even like accounting and finance topics. Like for me, I will look at a concept and try to do my best to break it down to explain it to
In layman's
people who
terms.
don't necessarily
In layman's terms.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because that's the highest form of learning, Sabrina, is when you can take something complex and make it simple and everybody understands
Everybody get it. Everybody
means-
get it.
Yeah, everybody gets it, and you have true mastery over what you're talking about, and people then will look at you and say, "Wow, this guy's pretty smart," So I think, like, like in terms of like just, and unfortunately, I can only give like generic advice, right?
Right.
But the number one thing I would recommend for Cayman right now, believe it or not, even before saving up for a house, Sabrina, have an emergency savings fund, right? Have an emergency savings fund, because right now in 2026, we don't know what's going to happen. It's what, January? We don't know what's going to go on.
You see what's happening, eh?
Yeah. Listen, yo, I'm in America right now. I know.
Yeah.
Listen. You might laugh, but
no, trust me,
man,
it's not laughing. It is that's not laughing at the situation. It's like I said in this space as a content creator since January, we ain't short of content. We just don't even know. I've even had friends that I speak to pretty much on a daily basis that says, we can see, Sabrina, you're grappling. What do you talk about today? It is that much.
Yeah.
It is that much. We're not short of content, but what do you do if you sit down and Jimbo says, unplug, but not in my space for what I do here? But we're not short of content. But if you don't laugh, you gonna cry, because in inevitability, which was what we were talking about of this migration here in the Cayman Islands. We know what had happened to Cayman back in the day when we had this huge influx of those Cuban nationals. What if that's from a different nationality now that we don't even know their cultures?
Sabrina, viewers of this podcast, I will say this, and this is one thing I learned from an American, right?
Somebody asks if you're not afraid of President Trump.
Me? Yo, listen, man. Yo, bro, if Mr. Trump ever come to my yard and tell me to jump and he got SWAT team outside, I gotta say how high. I could be honest. Like, yo, listen, Sabrina, I am allergic to copper. You understand?
Right.
I am allergic to lead bullets. That is my number one phobia. Like, but yeah, no, but in terms of like politics and everything up there, like, you got to do what the Romans do. But I will tell you this about immigration, and this might ruffle a lot of feathers, right? Integration without assimilation is invasion.
Wow.
I'll repeat it again. Integration without assimilation is invasion.
You're infiltrating yourself. You're actually diluting what you've found, and you've taken. Somebody asked me to give you a kaboom. Somebody asked me to give you a kaboom.
Oh, yeah.
That's what you said was so profound. They're asking for.
Yeah. And I will say it until the day I die. And this is with me as well as a green card holder, right? Sabrina, I go into another man's country. I am a guest in this country. You understand? It is a privilege for me to stay in this country until I become a US citizen. It is not a right, right? I have to follow certain rules and laws and regulations here, right? And I have to be in compliance with the law. The same thing goes for the immigrant as well. But the thing is that I think that we do have people that are coming in Cayman, but they are not willing to assimilate with the Caymanians. So if they come in and they integrate but they don't assimilate, guess what? In my definition, that's an invasion. That's an invasion. Because how are you going to go into another man's country and you don't want to learn their culture, their language, what they believe, their laws, and their values, and you think you can just bring your preconceived notions to another man? No, that's not gonna work. I had to do. Listen, Sabrina, I have to. When I came to America, I learned about their cultures, their traditions, their values, and what they believe, their laws and their rules and regulations, and I have to abide by those things, and I integrate into their society.
You
understand?
respect where you went.
Yes, absolutely. And I would do that to any country that I live in. You understand? It's not just America. If I go to the UK or Canada or Spain, and me and the missus and the baby and everything, we just go and live down in Spain, I would have to learn their language.
Not try to
So-
change them for where you coming from, because the invasion is outnumbering the where you are actually landing. And that is the balance. Remember, you spoke about percentage earlier on, that we're in the 20%. And I feel that is what the indigenous, the generational Caymanians are fighting for, because as you rightly put it, profound. Damian Henry said on point. We feel as though we're being invaded in our own country.
Yes. And listen, I'm only saying this as an anonymous individual. You understand?
Yeah.
Like I live in America and I do my own thing, but like I can tell you, from a young person perspective, and who has very little ties to Cayman now. Well, I mean, I do still have strong ties, but you get what I'm trying to say. I'm not living there, but yeah, no, man, it's a serious thing, because I can tell you one thing. How is it, and I don't mean to sound xenophobic or anything, but how is it that you come from like Cuba or Colombia or Peru or Venezuela or any South American country? You speak a different language. You come to the Cayman Islands, you don't know a single lick of English, and then you go and meet up with your other brethren, and then you just speak Spanish, and you don't care to learn the language. That is rude. That's not assimilation. Because if I were to go to France or Germany or Switzerland or Sweden, I would have to learn their language, because they would not speak to me in any other language but their native language.
But would you agree
And that's
that
something
would you agree that we have found ourselves just actually that we are actually trying to learn theirs instead of trying to impart our culture, our language, our way of life onto them? It's like we're more inclined to become them and not protect who we are.
Yes, because Sabrina, it's a form of dominance. In my opinion, it's a form of dominance. Why do I need to learn Spanish when my queen or my country is a UK territory and we speak the King's English? No, you need to speak my language. I'm not gonna let you come in here and then I must learn your language. No, you either learn my language or you go to some ESOL school, English as a second language school, and you learn my language. You owe me that duty of respect in my country. Can't just come in here and speak, like, not trying to sound away, and I'm not trying to be racist or anything,
No,
but like
I get you.
any other country would say the same thing. The Americans would say the same thing. The Spanish would say the same thing. Even people in Cuba would say the same thing. If you're living there. So I don't understand, why would it be a problem if we say, yo, you got to learn how to speak English,
Or these are our cultures. This is who, these are our traditions. We have heard about you've been here for, you said you were here the other day, and you saw the craziness and how the culture is on our roads. You see the styling, even driving and courtesies. You see even how you keep your yards, how we dispose of our garbage. It's like, that is not who we are. If you really ask the Caymanian people, even how we going back to even putting the trash in the bin, it's like we're seeing other cultures coming in and dominating, diluting who we are as a people. And I'm going to be honest, it's not that we're not trying to protect what we have. But as you rightfully say, as we continue to grow, we're getting diluted. We're having persons like yourself not using this against you. You have made some profound statement. You have contributed. We love to have you on. We want to hear more from you. But where do we go from here?
Well, here's before I continue, I am not, and I just want to make the viewers know this, I am not in support of, like, genetic purity, right? I'm not no like Adolf Hitler or anything like that. I'm not trying to say like, oh, we need to keep the genes within the family.
No,
That's
no, no,
not
no.
what I'm
Oh, no,
saying.
no, no. Yeah, but yeah, go ahead.
That is not what I'm saying, right? I think that there is a place, right? There is a place for other cultures to come in and integrate and add value. But other cultures need to assimilate to our values and then add, right? Because what they're doing is they're coming in and they're saying, we're going to add to your country. And it's like, no, 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 friend. You assimilate first and then you give me your input and then we share. But you can't just come in and just demand that we do this. Like, no, that's not right. And, it's even like with, it's even like marriages as well. Like when you get married to like a foreigner, you have to assimilate with your partner's or your husband or your wife's culture. You understand? And you have to learn that. So if you do that in a marriage, right? Like, and people find that easier to do generally. Well, I mean, I don't know, but
there are culture
like,
clashes nowadays, but yeah, I get exactly
yeah,
where you're going with the analogy.
but we should be able to say to them without fear of discrimination or prejudice that, hey, you're coming into our country, assimilate with our culture, you learn about us, and then we learn about you.
Yeah.
But what we're not gonna do is we're not gonna just say, okay, well, we're gonna take everything that you believe and start running a Fidel Castro communist society. That's not what we're gonna do, right? They are a guest. We are natives, just like how I'm a guest in the United States and they're natives, right? You just have to understand where you are and where you stand, right?
And the people,
And that's
the
and the
people need
people,
to stand and protect who we are. And that
right?
is what they're trying to do right now with the immigration reform, where we're trying to encourage more people. But it's like, how do you do a balance without insulting anyone when we feel as though there's not enough of us generational Caymanians in the 20-odd percentage where we have ballooned without offending anyone? Or has it reached to the point where who gives a crap about offending anyone? We got to protect the little that remains.
Can I tell you a little quote that I also learned, if that's okay, to answer your question?
Go ahead.
In order to reach to the truth, you have to risk offending people. The truth is offensive. The truth is offensive. Like, some people would disagree, but you can't cater to everybody, Sabrina.
Yeah.
Like,
At some point, you got to draw the line.
catering,
Yeah.
at some point, you have to say that this is true and this is not true, right? It's the same thing that's going on in the U.S., right? Some of these people in America believe that there's 76 different genders, including a penguin. And I'm like, yo, brother, like, no, that is not true. That is false, right? Oh no, you're offending me and my 76 polygender penguin stuff. And I'm like, yo, I don't want to be a penguin. I a Cayman. And I'm a man,
Or what are you identifying as today? I'm not so sure. Who am I talking to? What about, and this is not making fun of anyone. This is just how complex we have made living. This is how complicated we have made just assimilating with one another. It's the truth.
Yes, and we need, I think as Caymanians, we need to value the truth over feelings. You understand? I don't give a rat's butt about people's feelings. You understand? You may feel something is wrong, but if it's not wrong and it's right, you may feel that something's not right, but if it is right, we need to pursue the truth, right? We need to be a society based in objective truth, right? And we need to do things that are true. That's what I think that we as Caymanians should strive towards. We shouldn't strive towards pleasing everybody. I mean, yeah, there's a time and place for that. But at the end of the day, I don't want, because, this is why I had a problem at the beginning when people are like, oh, be Cayman kind. I'm like, no, absolutely not. I don't want some, no offense, I don't want some leftist American coming into Cayman and a whole group of them, right? Or anybody, a whole group of individuals, not just Americans, but a whole group of individuals coming into Cayman and saying that men can go into the little girl's room. No. And then they say, oh, you're offending me because this is my cultural identity and this is what I identify with. And, and then we're like, oh, well, let's just be Cayman kind. And no, we need to be Cayman first. We need to put our people first, and we need to pursue. And how we do that, the first step is by looking at what is true and chasing after that and going after that, whether it be politics, finance, religion, economics. Like, we need to strive for what is true, from Sabrina.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Well,
And I try to
caller,
find a
I
way,
could
but-
go on another 2 hours with you,
Yeah.
but tomorrow is open mic. Feel free, my sweet. Feel free. Even Jimbo is asking for us to give you another kaboom because
I'm sorry.
you're getting all
By
the
the way, I
kabooms
am
this
so
evening.
sorry. I am so sorry for taking up everybody's time. I
No,
do
you are
apologize.
loved. I think you need to go back and watch this podcast, but only to read the comments that are coming in. I tried to put everyone on the screen as they were coming in, so it ties in with what you were saying, understanding there's like 2 or 3 seconds delay, but at least it makes sense. But you're loved, you're appreciated, you're respected, and people are saying kudos to you. They're even willing that if they ever were to have an opportunity to meet you, they would buy you a drink. Like, you don't understand the love that is being showed here for you. So I encourage you to go on and read just the comments so that you can put it all together. You are appreciated.
Listen, just one last thing for the people in the comment section. My favorite drink is Appleton and Pepsi. Like, you
Nice.
get me that, we good.
Nice.
And you guys- And Country and Western is the place I normally hang out whenever I go Cayman.
Oh, really? Good to know. Well,
Yeah.
let us know whenever you're in town again, and we definitely have to meet up. But thank you so much. Tomorrow is Open Mic Friday, and you're always welcome. Always, always. You and anybody else.
All right. Well, thank you. Sorry for taking up everybody's time. You
Don't
have a good night,
apologize. You're great. You're great. You're great. Awesome show. Everybody's
Yeah.
saying it. Thank you so much. Take care.
No problem. Have a good night.
Sure.
Bye.
Good night. There we have it. OMG. We gotta really just give him another kaboom, right? These, let me tell you something. Just before coming live, I was having a discussion with Eric, and I was like, "Oh my gosh!" I'm like, "Oh," and I said, "There has to be a purpose for this show." And I honestly walked up the stairs to come into studio, and I prayed. I said, "Just show me something to just make me keep going on." And I must tell you, I must testify right this second. That's a sign. And I'm hoping that as we continue to grow into space, that more young persons, be it here or abroad, will just find the nerve, the strength to just impart their knowledge, to see exactly what we're trying to do with this space, and can really, really appreciate this is freedom of speech here. Your opinion matters as we educate one another. It has been a pleasure, an honor hosting this evening's show. Thank you to all of our commenters. Thank you for the caller, even those who gave way that we're going to call. Tomorrow is open mic. It's also Friday. It's the eve to a long weekend. God bless. Good night. Stay safe. And please, I'll see you back tomorrow. Take care. That's a wrap for today's edition of Sabrina Speaks. Thank you for tuning in and for being part of the conversation. Remember, the dialogue doesn't stop here. Stay engaged, stay informed, and most importantly, stay empowered. We'll be back tomorrow at 5 p.m., same time, same place, right here on CMR TV and radio, where your voice matters and your truth is heard. Until then, Cayman, take care of yourself and each other.
That's it for today's edition of Sabrina Speaks, where your voice matters, your story counts, and your truth is always welcome. Join us weekdays from 5 until 6:30 p.m. right here on CMR TV as we dive into the topics that matter most to you. Catch the show live or on demand at cmrtv.com. And don't forget to follow us on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram so you never miss a moment. Until next time, stay informed, stay engaged, and always speak your truth.